Hi everyone, welcome to the third lecture on why be good. So in today's lecture, we're going to look at another answer to the question, why be good? And this answer is just because of the sort of being you are. And I'll explain what that means in due course. Let's start with a recap of what we've seen so far. So in the first lecture, we got our first answer to the question, why be good? Don't be, just appear to be. So here we saw that the idea is that we don't have reasons to be good, but we do have reasons to appear to be good, because all the good and bad things that we get from being good, we can apparently just get by just appearing to be good. And then we saw our second answer, to avoid punishment. So the idea here is that the reason why we're going to be good, that we should be good, is so we can avoid facing any punishment for what we do. And so first we might think this only provides a reason to appear good, because if you appear that you're good, then people won't punish you for the bad things that you've done, because they won't know about them, because you'll have successfully shown the world that you're in fact a good person. But we also considered arguments to the effect that no, you can't just appear to be good, but you also actually have to be good. And the thought there is people could find out that you're not actually a good person. There's always that risk. Or if you believe in God, then there's always that risk that God will, God will be able to see that you're not a good person and punish you in this life or the next. Of course, the lingering worry you might have there is that if you're being good to avoid punishment, then maybe you're not doing it for the right kind of reason. Maybe you should be invested in morality just because it's morality. You should be being good just because it's good. Like, that should be a reason. There shouldn't be anything further. This led us into thinking about ethical and psychological egoism, which provided our third answer to why be good, because it's all you can do. So we saw that the psychological egoist says that you actually can't help but act on your own self-interest. And this might seem like, well, if you're acting on your own self-interest, then you're not doing what's good, because sometimes what's good is going against your self-interest. Here, the ethical egoist came to the rescue and said, well, actually, morally, you ought to do what's in your own self-interest. And if psychological egoism is true as well, then all that you can do is being good, because all you can do is act in your self-interest, and acting in your self-interest is morally good. So all you can do is be good. So those are the three answers we've considered so far. Today we're going to change tack a little bit, and we're going to focus on an argument that says that while morality doesn't give everyone a reason to be good, it gives many people reason and virtue of the kind of beings that we are. So this answer we're going to see comes on the backdrop of a view that morality doesn't quite have the same force on each person as people might have assumed. It might seem intuitive to think that morality just applies to everyone. And that because it applies to everyone, it's going to have that force on everyone. Everyone's going to at least see the force of acting rightly and doing good things. Even if they go against that, there must be some reason or explanation. Perhaps if they knew how bad the things they were doing were, they would actually do the good things. But as we're going to see today, the view that we're going to consider and the paper we're going to focus on by Philippa Foot says that morality just doesn't have that kind of force on everyone. Morality has force on us because of the kind of beings we are. So the answer is going to be, why be good? Well, because of the kind of being you are. You're set up in such a way that you do care about morality. But if you didn't care about morality, then morality wouldn't have any force on you. It might still apply to you. People could maybe still praise and blame you for the good and bad things you do. But if you don't care about morality at all, then the idea is that it's not going to have any force on you. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the argument in due course. So let's start by thinking about a common sense idea. We're going to call this the morality constraint. And this common sense idea is that morality holds categorically. And to say something holds categorically means that it holds independently of any further consideration. Moreover, it's considerations that might vary from person to person or situation to situation. So there's if something holds categorically, it's just going to apply to everyone. It's going to apply to you just because of that, and it's going to apply to everyone. So, for example, if you have a duty to benefit others or duty of beneficence, that's just going to hold categorically. Everyone's going to have that duty. Everyone ought to sort of help others out and do good things. Or if you have a duty of justice, and that holds categorically, and that's always just going to hold to everyone, regardless of the situation. Different situations might differ in how you ought to, meet that duty, but everyone's going to have that duty. Well, if this is right, then we're looking for a reason to be moral that holds for all people at all times, independently of anything which might vary from circumstance to circumstance or person to person. So the reason to be moral here is just something that's going to just apply across the board to every single person, and that's going to be it. So we might wonder, can we find a true descriptive claim about our nature like this? Is it going to be the case that everyone's going to, be such that they're drawn to morality in that kind of way, and that they'll find morality to be constraining, such that morality always provides reasons for action? So we can put this another way. Is there anything about the very sort of being that humans are which gives us all a reason to be moral always? Let's think about the kinds of creatures we are. Is there a reason that holds independently of that which might be prudentially good for a particular person at a particular time, and independently of the many differences between people and places? So are there going to be things that we ought to do, duties, moral requirements that just hold regardless? And not only do they hold regardless, but they all have particular force on us, as given the kinds of beings we are. So like I said, we're going to be focusing today on a paper by Philippa Foot. And so Philippa Foot says that there's nothing about morality which gives us all a reason to always be moral. She thinks that people are just trying to give the moral magical force if they're trying to find that kind of reason. The thought here is that, yes, we will all, this is not to, she doesn't want to say that, morality has no force at all, but she thinks it has the force it does, not due to it just being morality, but due to the kinds of creatures we are and the kinds of attitudes that we have. And as we'll see, it's because we care about being moral that we're actually, on her view, have a reason to be moral. If we didn't care about being moral, we wouldn't have a reason to be moral. And so why be moral or why be good? That depends on the kind of creatures we are. So let's start with some terminology. So Foot talks a lot about imperatives. So you might wonder what imperatives are. And basically, they're just commands. They're things like shut the door, shut your mouth, do a little dance, eat some cheese. Now, I think thinking of these in terms of commands might make you think of, being in the military or being in some hierarchical organization. They say, you get a command. My superior has commanded me to, fire at the enemy. Sounds, quite la-di-da, quite strong. But imperatives are, even though we can think of them as commands, they can still be quite weak and polite and so on. You'd say, shut the door. It could still be a kind of command, but it could be put politely. Shut your mouth, on the other hand, has a certain connotation, doesn't seem so polite. Whereas like eat some cheese or do a little dance, they can at least be come up not so strong. They don't have to, have the same force as shut your mouth. So imperatives specify some action to be taken. They specify something that ought to be done. Right. So if you're saying shut the door, you're saying the door ought to be shut. You're putting it in the form of a command, but really there's a kind of normative force there. You want the door to be shut. You want the world to be such that the door that you're specifying is shut. So when we think of imperatives, we can think of them as covering sentences with shoulds and oughts. So you say, you should shut the door, you should shut your mouth, you should do a little dance, you should eat some cheese. These are different ways of paraphrasing the commands that we just looked at. So like shut the door, shut your mouth, do a little dance, eat some cheese. in a way that's shorthand and put more forcefully, I was saying, you should shut the door, you should shut your mouth, you should do a little dance. And it's just put that way as a matter of language. So we can understand these sentences as commanding you take some kind of action. You should do this, you should do that. It's not just a suggestion. So sometimes when we use should, you say, oh, you should shut the door, or you should buy that dress, or you should buy that suit, or you should get that haircut. Sometimes we use should in a bit more of a lighter way, where it's a suggestion. Here the thought was imperative, so we use the sort of imperative should, the imperative all. It's closer to a command. It has this normative force. It's not just a suggestion, but something that you should do that. So now we know what imperatives are. Now, Foote is going to say that morality is a system of hypothetical imperatives. We've seen that this goes against the idea that morality involves categorical imperatives. So categorical imperatives are ones that hold out independently of any further consideration. So they have roughly the form, do I? So, it'd be something like, shut the door, do I? Or why is shut the door. Hypothetical imperatives, on the other hand, depend on some further consideration in order to hold. So they have the form, if you want X, do Y. So a hypothetical imperative might be something like, if you don't want the breeze to knock over the books in the room, or to knock over the papers, to knock the papers off your desk, then you ought to shut the door. So you could say to somebody, shut the door. It could be thought of as a hypothetical imperative. You could be saying, I don't want the breeze to come and blow away my papers off my desk, so please shut the door. I want the door to be shut. Or you could think of it as a categorical imperative. You say, shut the door. And actually what you're saying is you want the door to be shut independently of any further consideration. It's just how the world ought to be. So we're going to look more into hypothetical imperatives and their nature, but I just want us to remind ourselves of the different kinds of shoulds we've already come across. So remember, we've talked about the prudential should and the moral should. So the prudential should is the should from the standpoint of your own interests, and the moral should is the should from the standpoint of morality. So remember, if you say something like, oh, you should stop smoking, or you ought to stop smoking, the should or ought there is from the standpoint of your own interests. Smoking's bad, it's bad for your health, and you ought not to do it. The moral should, you could say to somebody, oh, you ought not smoke. And it could be a moral should, or you should not smoke, and it could be a moral should, but there'd have to be some moral reason. Perhaps you shouldn't smoke because you'll get cancer later in life, or you risk getting cancer later in life, and that will cause a burden on healthcare services. So it's morally bad of you to smoke. But it could also be the case that maybe it's morally good of you to smoke. Maybe an evil villain has kidnapped your family and they've said, I want you to be a smoker for 5 years, so that I'll release the family. And so let's say morally you ought to smoke there, but prudentially, at least in terms of your health, it's not good for you. Obviously, it could be good for you in the sense that your family would be rescued, but there's at least one sense in which you'll be going against your interests. But the core thing to remember is the prudential should is about your interests, what's important to you, whereas the moral should is advancing what's important to morality. And those two things don't necessarily go together, at least intuitively. So you might wonder then, are prudential shoulds hypothetical or categorical imperatives? What do you think? Which form do they have? When you think about prudential shoulds, or something like you shouldn't smoke, does it have the form, if you want to X, do Y, or does it have the form, do Y? Think more about that. Do they hold independently of any further consideration? So think about you ought not to smoke, or you should not smoke. Initially, in the face of it, it has the form, do Y. But then you might wonder, well, why shouldn't I smoke? You might think, well, it's because smoking's bad for your health. And if you want to have good health, then you shouldn't smoke. Now it looks like that prudential should is actually a hypothetical imperative, because it's appealing to a further consideration, namely you wanting to be healthy. And you ought not to smoke if you want to be healthy. But if you don't want to be healthy, then go ahead. Like plenty of people who are smokers will say, life is only so long, I'm going to die of something else anyway, so I'm just going to smoke. What are you going to do? Like, if you say to someone you should smoke, but they don't care about their health, that should is going to have no force on them. So it's a hypothetical imperative. It depends on the person agreeing to agreeing that the particular thing, the background claim or the background condition which says, you should care about your health. Or no, if you care about your health, then you want to do this. And if the person doesn't care about their health, then you're never going to convince them not to smoke. You'd have to find something else that would draw them, but health reasons are not going to be that. So you can think about brushing your teeth as another example. So you should brush your teeth. And here the thought might be, if you want to have healthy teeth and gums, you should brush your teeth. And importantly here, it's the health of your teeth and gums, which is something that makes it true that you should brush your teeth. If you don't care about healthy teeth and gums, then you shouldn't brush your teeth. Again, remember, imagine somebody who just doesn't care about their teeth. They have zero care about their teeth. They don't care about dental health, gum health. They're quite happy and almost pleased, let's say, for their teeth to, mold, get decay, go black, fall out. For that person, when you say you should brush your teeth, it has no force for them because they don't have the initial care about, they don't have the want or desire, they need to have good teeth. So they're never going to get them to brush their teeth, and they're never going to be convinced there's a reason for them to brush their teeth because they don't care about their oral health. So potential shoulds look like hypothetical imperatives, since they won't hold for you unless you have certain desires, unless certain things are true about you, unless you care about certain things, unless you want certain things, unless you desire certain things. If you don't have those things, then you're not going to feel the force. You're not going to see any reason to do the Y if you don't want the X. So let's think about moral shoulds. Are moral shoulds hypothetical or categorical imperatives? So do they have the form, if you want X, do Y, or do they have the form, do Y? Again, do moral shoulds hold independently of any further consideration? So you might think, well, don't lie. It might seem like, that's what they have. So the thought here is that, if we accept the common sense idea that morality holds categorically, then moral shoulds are categorical imperatives. So this is obviously got a picture of Kant here, a very bad pun to do with Kant and the categorical imperative. We're not going to talk specifically about Kant here, but the thought for Kant is that moral shoulds are categorical. They hold independently of any other consideration for other people. So something like don't lie, has the form of do Y, and not if you want X, do Y. It's not that, if you want something good to happen, then you ought to do Y. Rather for Kant, it's just you should do certain things and you should do certain things. So they're categorical and they don't depend on further considerations. Morality is the most important, the thing in itself, that you're trying to do good things and avoid doing bad things, and that's it. So again, here's an example. You should give morally to charity, has the form do I. And we can sometimes back up to something that more plausibly holds categorically. So there might be some thing that initially has the form do I, and you might think, well, it doesn't apply to everyone in every instance. So maybe some people shouldn't give to charity. Maybe they shouldn't give away their earnings. But perhaps for those people who should give to charity, there's an underlying moral should that does hold categorically. It could be something like, you should be morally kind. And the thought there then that ultimately the duties we have would be duties of kindness, and duties of kindness would then lead to duties to give to charities in certain situations. So maybe you should give to charity doesn't hold categorically, but the sort of underlying or basic duty from which the duty to give to charity, or the duty to give to charity arises, that underlying duty of kindness, let's suppose, does hold categorically. And that will mean that some people ought to give to charity. So if this is true, then according to common sense, it's supposed to hold for each person at all times, independently of anything they desire. So the thought here is a duty to be kind. We're just using an example, holds for everyone regardless of the situation. Now that might manifest itself in different ways, but it's still supposed to hold categorically because everyone should be kind. That kindness might take different forms, but that's less important than the fact that everyone ought to be kind. So Foot, going on the sort of attack here, wants to sort of compare moral shoulds and potential shoulds to a different kind of should. So she talks about the should of etiquette. So, for example, you should still wear from the outside in, a very old standard example here. And you shouldn't talk with your mouth full. A little typo there, apologies. Change that in the slides. So Foot says, well, are these hypothetical imperatives? She says, well, actually, no, right? On the face of it, they seem to hold independently of any proper consideration. They hold for you independently of any desires you have. You may not want to, talk. You may even want to talk with your mouth full. You may not really care about what cutlery you use or what silverware you use. So the shoulds of etiquette are supposed to, at least seems in the face of it, hold categorically. But here's the thought. No, even if it's true that etiquette commands categorically, it's still the case that particular persons at particular times might not care about etiquette. So if you're somebody who doesn't care about the correct order of using your knives and forks, or a fish knife and the different wee spoons you might have, when somebody says to you, you should, go from the outside in or not chew your mouth full, those shoulds just have no force on you because you just don't care. Like somebody says, well, you should do this. But why? Why should I do this? So even if these etiquette commands hold categorically, they might not have any force on people who just don't care about etiquette. So a person may not take the categorical imperative to be a reason for how she behaves. She might just think, well, I don't care if it's supposed to be categorical. Well, there's not a reason for me. So it may be true that she should, from the standpoint of etiquette, not talk with her mouth full. But even so, she might just, spit her dinner everywhere and she'll be thought of badly. People will think she's rude. But if you don't care, then about people seeing you as being rude, or you're not going to care about following these shoulds of etiquette. And so you're not going to see yourself as having any reason not to be rude. So the important thing here is, it seems that if a should is going to have force on you, if a should is going to give you a reason, you have to care about the thing in question. So if the should is connected to a particular thing, like etiquette, then you have to care about etiquette for that should of etiquette to have any force on you. So you might worry then, well, if morality is categorical, then it's not supposed to be like that, right? It's supposed to always have force, right? What you morally ought to do is supposed to hold for everyone. Like categorical imperatives of morality are always supposed to be reasons for how you behave. If it's true that somebody should give to charity, then they shouldn't hog all their resources. If you were to hog all your resources, that might make you immoral, and you're supposed to have a reason to be moral, regardless of what you care about. And you might have a moral monster still supposed to have reasons to be moral. They just disregard those reasons and act on different reasons. So morality is always supposed to apply to people, always supposed to have force, regardless of what their attitudes are, what they care about, what they desire, or what they want. But Foot captures this by saying that, according to common sense, moral shoulds are not merely categorical in the same way as the shoulds of etiquette. But we think that morality is inescapable. You're not supposed to be able to escape morality. So it's not just that moral shoulds are categorical in the same way that shoulds of etiquette are, but they're also inescapable. You can escape the shoulds of etiquette by not caring about etiquette, but you're not supposed to be able to escape morality by not caring about morality. But Foot thinks this isn't correct, and she wants to challenge that. So let's return back into where we were in Foot's challenge to morality being inescapable. What I think, well, according to common sense, or people's conventional wisdom about morality, morality is in some way special. Not only are moral shoulds categorical in the way that etiquette is categorical, but morality is also supposed to have a force for everyone, regardless of what they care about or want. So morality is supposed to be almost this overbearing thing that you just can't avoid. Whereas etiquette, I mean, you have to really be invested in etiquette to make it have any difference. If you care about etiquette, then you're going to care about the sort of rules and shoulds of etiquette. But whether you care about morality or not, it's not supposed to make any difference. Morality is still supposed to have force on you. So if something's morally wrong, then you shouldn't do it. And that's the thought, is that, moral wrongness is supposed to give you a reason not to do things. You shouldn't do it, and you should see that you shouldn't do it and that you have reason not to do it because it's morally wrong. Pardon me. If it's morally required to do something, then you should do it. So if you have this requirement, to give to charity or be kind, then you should see that morality is like commanding you to be kind and give to charity. So it's something you should do, really. At least should give you a reason, have some pull on you. And so morality is supposed to apply in this way, absolutely no matter what. And the thought there is that the moral should is supposed to be inescapable. You can't just opt out of morality. You can opt out of etiquette, but you can't opt out of morality. It's inescapable. At least that's the common sense thought, and one that Foot wants to challenge. So the moral should is supposed to always give a reason, no matter what else we care about. If inescapable is what we mean by morality being categorical, as we typically do, then we're wrong. So if we actually, by categorical, we don't just mean categorical in the way that the shoulds of etiquette are, but in the way that the shoulds of morality are, then the inescapability is supposed to be part of the categorical nature of moral imperatives. But according to Foot, nothing is categorical in the sense that it's inescapable. So Foot's going to think that Foot wants to argue that all of these shoulds are in principle escapable. They're based on the reason they have hold on us. They give us reasons, according to Foot, as we'll see, and as we've already said, is that we care about the things in question. We have desires or wants that are related to them. And that's why they have hold on us. And that's why they give us reasons for action or reasons against action. But nothing categorical in this sense is inescapable, that it's going to have hold on you regardless of what kind of person you are. So Foot here gives an alternative explanation for why morality seems inescapable. So she wants to argue that morality is escapable, but she agrees that common sense says that it is inescapable. So she wants to provide an explanation about why we've been led into this incorrect view in common sense. Foot, in short, just says, well, that's just what we've been taught. And we probably feel very strongly that morality is inescapable because of this moral education. Of course, we feel that we have to be moral, right? Like, think about your whole childhood. Your parents are saying you should do this, you shouldn't do this. Then you go to school, oh, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. And so we have this whole education where it seems like, morality is coming in every direction, and it has this force in us, and we can't ever get away from it. We can't just say no, because if we try and opt out of it, well, what happens, right? What happens if you try and opt out of morality and do what you want? Well, then you'd be punished, right? Like, systems of punishment and blame and things like this are in place to try and get you on the straight and narrow, to make sure that you are a moral person and you avoid immorality. And on the other end, we sort of praise and reward people for doing things that are morally good. Somebody rescues somebody from a burning building, we say, well done for that, keep that up. And we might admire them, we might just bestow honors on them. And so in these ways, by punishing immorality and praising and rewarding morality or moral behavior, we create this kind of picture, that we can never really escape morality. Importantly, it's partly that these systems of blame and punishment and praise and reward make us feel bad for being immoral and good if we're moral, and that's supposed to then reinforce this overall system of morality. And if it's right about that, then that would explain why, or is a potential explanation of why morality appears inescapable, but in fact isn't. Because really, what's happening is we have this system of moral education and then moral enforcement, if you will, between punishment and blame and praise and reward, maintaining this overall system. So if Foot's right, then our reasons to be moral depend on our education and feelings. If that's the case, right, then it looks like morality might actually be hypothetical. Like, if you care about morality, then you ought to give to charity. You ought to be kind. But you have to care about morality, and you have to care about other people, and you have to do this, that, and the other. So Foot says the conclusion we should draw is that moral judgments have no better claim to be categorical imperatives than statements about matters of etiquette. People may indeed follow either morality or etiquette without asking why they should do so, but equally well they may not. They may ask for reasons and may reasonably refuse to follow either if reasons are not to be found. So the thought here is there's nothing about the sort of creature you are that makes morality categorical if this means inescapable. So the kind of creature you are doesn't mean that you can't escape morality. You could, the fact you have particular cares and values and things like that isn't essential to the kind of being you are. You could still be a human being. You could even still be you, but yet not care about the same things you do or have the same desires or wants. You could be the same person, or even at least still a human being, but not care about morality at all, or not care about other people, not care about charity or kindness or justice, beneficence. So the thought is there's nothing that gives every human person in all times and places, independently of any other consideration, a reason to be moral. Moral shoulds aren't categorical. They don't have this form, do I? Instead, on this view, as per the title of Foot's paper, morality is supposed to be a system of hypothetical imperatives. So moral shoulds actually implicitly have the form, if you want X, do Y. So if you want to help someone else out, you should help them out, but you have to also have that. You have to want to help them out in the first place to have that should, or that should have any force on you. So unless you desire or care about certain things, you will not have reason to do the things which you are morally required to do. In response to the idea that morality is escapable, Foot says that we're apt to panic, but she doesn't think we should panic. We haven't just become ethical egoists, because we can still reject psychological egoism. It's still the case, as a matter of fact, that most people care about other people not just as a means but as ends, and that will generate reasons to be moral. Most of us, in fact, care about relieving the suffering of others and not just being, and care about the suffering of others, about being just, about being kind, and being honest, and so on. So we do actually have all these cares. We actually do treat people as ends, and we do care about justice, care about kindness, and care about honesty, and various other things. It might vary from person to person, but we still have these general moral concerns about other people. And so we're not egoists of any form, and morality still has force in us, but due to facts about us as individuals and not facts about morality in and of itself. So for most of us, our desires give us reasons to be moral. The moral shoulds will hold for most of us because we care about relevant things, right? Because they do hold for most of us, because of all sorts of contingent facts about us, namely the sorts of beings we are, how we were raised, the society we live in, and so on. They don't hold it inescapably for all of us, right? Because of any fact about the sort of being we are, right? There's nothing about us as people, right, that means that we can't escape them, but they still have force in us because of how they are, right? And of course, they're in principle escapable because we could change. You could go from somebody who cares about morality, who cares about others, cares about justice and kindness, cares about treating people as ends rather than means to ends. You could change. Maybe you get a knock on the head and suddenly you're an amoral person or immoral person and you just don't care about others and you're happy to use someone as a means to an end. Then you kind of escape the force of morality there. in a way this makes perfect sense. Those people who just don't care about being moral, you're never going to convince them to do something. It's never going to have any real force on them to say, oh, you should be kind, or you should steal, or you shouldn't punch people in the face, if they really don't care about not doing those things, or they don't see the harm in those things. The shoulds don't have any force in them. If Foot thinks that's perfectly fine, that's just the picture of morality that we have. So just to summarize here, according to Foot, why be moral? Well, because of the sort of creature you are. And importantly, the kind of creature you are isn't going to mean that you can never escape being moral, or you can never escape the force of moral reasons. But rather, contingently, you have particular cares and desires and values and attitudes. And that because of that overall psychology that you have, that those overall set of attitudes, the overall motivational system, you are bound by morality. But because of that contingent psychological makeup that you have. So that's it for today. The collaborative class, we'll be talking about moral saints. And so I'll see you back then for that.